Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel and the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel as well. That's where you are currently, Pro Wrestling Logic. We've got over 1,400 audios for your listening pleasure on modern wrestling as well as old school and new school of all points in between. We try to be here as often as we can and bring you the largest connection to the long-term wrestling impact and have the largest collection of YouTube audios on wrestling review series that we possibly can. So this is the Impact Review for the 3rd of June 2021. Not really the best of shows, and the shows do seem to be falling off a bit, but it's more so because I think they're trying to do too much with lesser talents and trying to keep the things going in a meaningful way. With the AEW angle that really at the end of the day doesn't serve them unless the angle is more consistent than it has been. So we open up with the X Division champion Josh Alexander with Petey Williams defeating TJP with Falaba 2 falls to 1 in an Iron Man match here. This began on BTI, and ultimately both men have feuded around the area for a while. Match started on the BTI program, started with a slow pace, both men back and forth with holds. TJP keeps going between legs and arms, trying to find a weak point, and really does wrestle quite well throughout. And Alexander stays on the left arm throughout, and both men keep going for about 15 minutes. There is a trade in momentum several times throughout the match. Alexander distracts himself with Falaba and then comes back into the match. He manages to lock on an ankle lock at about the 15 to 17 minute mark. Both men trade reversals. Alexander manages to keep TJP down for a 3 count and gives him a 1-0 1 fall advantage. TJP is hurt and Alexander begins dominating and sets a slower pace, working over the head and neck of TJP, but he tries to take a count out win. TJP wasn't making it his way back into the ring in time, but still doesn't take that. Alexander maintains control well into the 30-minute mark of the match. 40 minutes in, TJP is still down 1-0. He manages to hurt Alexander in the midsection, and at the 45-minute mark, TJP turns the match around. He catches Alexander with the octopus stretch hold and then follows up with a DDT and a dive. Alexander hits a brainbuster and drives his opponent into the apron. Match continues to get a little heated, and they spill to the outside. Alexander goes for the pile driver, and TJP is distracted by Chris Sabin, Trey Miguel, and Williams telling him not to cross that line. TJP uses time to recover and reverse. Alexander hits a pile driver gets hit with one himself, and wanting to take the count out win. Alexander makes it back in just at 9. Roster tries to spill out to watch the match, which doesn't make sense. They weren't watching the whole thing, or at least more of it. TJP follows up with a haluva kick and the Mamba Splash. Alexander moves out of the way. Alexander is bleeding from the forehead at some point. TJP locks Alexander in the Tree of Woe, takes off the headgear. TJP still can't get the pin. 5 minutes to go. TJP hits a Falcon Arrow, near fall, followed by a couple of running boots. Alexander reacts with two encounters into the ankle lock. TJP hits a desperation kick for a 2 count, finally gets connected with a Mamba Splash, but Alexander still kicks out. TJP finally goes for another detention kick. Alexander counters into an ankle lock with 2 minutes to go. TJP reversed into an ankle lock himself and into a knee bar. Somehow Alexander manages to reverse into an ankle lock. In a final minute, Alexander with TJP gets into a deep ankle lock and gets grapevined. TJP manages to roll back into the ankle lock and pin Alexander to tie the match, meaning we go into sudden death. We go into a striking exchange in the sudden death, and Alexander is battered and bloody and beaten up. Alexander catches TJP with a Green Bay plunge and a moonsault and power bomb on the knee. Gets a near fall. He hits the divine intervention, wins the match 2-1. Um, Alexander certainly has a lot of potential to do something big. He's not my style of wrestler, but a lot of people compare him to young Kurt Angle at a lesser degree, and I can see it. Alexander then talks about how hard Iron matches are. Eddie Edwards walks up and congratulates him. TJP walked up and thanked Alexander for the match, which I hated. If you've just battled with someone for an hour, you shouldn't be saying thank you on camera. D'Amore approaches them, to which Alexander tells him that he is still the only Impact wrestler holding an Impact Championship, and until they regain the Impact World Championship, he considers himself the King of the Mountain. All of the X Division guy walks up and asks D'Amore for a shot, but D'Amore walked away. Jake Something defeats Rohit Raju in a tables match. This match has been building for about a month, maybe a month and a half. Match goes into table teases early. Both men brawl outside the ring. Raju tries to bring chairs into the match, but he's blocked by Something and easily taken down by some power moves from Something. And then wouldn't be until Raju hits a desperate foot stomp, and then he gets an opening to attack Something with a chair over and over, focusing on the arm. Raju keeps Something down for some time between the knee attacks and chair spots and low blows. At the point, he hits top rope foot stomp onto Something and lays out a chair and an open chair bed. Finish then sees Raju try to kick Something into a vertical table spot. Something then counters with a couple of black hole slams, and then destroys Raju through a table with a spear. Not a fan of this. Mosley asked D'Amore for a match with Rich Swann. Swann asked for 1-2. Match is up next. Rosemary cuts a promo on Deonna Purrazzo. She said last week she pinned her, and against all odds, she's bringing the title back to the darkness. Havoc walked up to Rosemary and told her just because they've been on the same side lately, she still is coming for the title regardless of who wins it against all odds rather. Rosemary tells her if she wanted a shot, she'd need to take it from her. Rich Swann and Mosley doesn't actually get started. Swann and Mosley start battling with each other when Mosley jumps Swann on the entranceway. Swann tries to make a comeback, but Morrissey doesn't keep him down with a big boot. Security comes out and stops him from damage to Swann. Distraction from security. Willie Mack comes out with a chair and keeps Morrissey at bay. Saving Swann from a further beatdown, Morrissey walks away and he is smiling. Backstage, Tenille and Caleb with a K walked up to Rachel Ellering where she's warming up. Dashwood brought up the chemistry between them last week's match, and since they both wanted to get the tag titles, maybe they could team up. Jordana Grace then saves Ellering from awkwardness. Dashwood wished them luck in the tag title match tonight. And we get a video package from Brian Myers explaining from Sam Beal on how to be a professional wrestler. He makes fun of his look and presentation, gives him a t-shirt to hide his tattoos, tells him to change his entrance, and then Gia Miller interviews Purrazzo and told her that Havoc and Rosemary are wrestling next week, and if Havoc wins, she's inserted into the Against All Out match, or Against All Odds match rather. Purrazzo said that the office keeps stacking the odds against her, but she's already defeated them before and she'll do it again. Knockout Tag Team Champions Fire and Flav, Hogan and Steels, defeats Jordana Grace and Rachel Ellering to retain the titles. Week after winning the titles, Grace and Ellering lost them again to the former champions. Hogan and Steels, and they have successfully made Grace question her ability in ring. She says she's the one to take her pin for the team. Ellering, Jazz, and also are in that role. The match is short version of the Under Siege match, which we've already seen. Ellering is a babyface in peril. Grace gets the hot tag. Ellering returns to the match and once again gets cut off by the champs. Match eventually comes down to Grace and Steels, with Grace taking things to the outside. Champions double team Grace with a frog splash and sleeper combo to retain the titles. Yet another loss for Grace, who's close to her breaking point. Dashwood never interfered or came into process here. Sami Callihan cuts a promo saying he isn't afraid of Moose. He should be. Callihan walked up to him and tried to play head games with him, telling him he's only on his side because everyone likes Moose, and he recognized Callahan's potential. There's a vignette with Steve Macklin, the former Steve Cutler, who likes to drink Jameson and listen to old music. Yeah, not a fan of this. It feels like a Hangman Page ripoff. Backstage, Hogan and Steels bugged D'Amore about the title defense celebration, told him that they wanted new competition. D'Amore tells them that Susan and Kimberly had issues with them, and they'd be defending the titles against them and against all odds. Then we go to Kojima defeating Diener with Violent by Design. Kojima debuts last week, challenging Doring to a match against all odds before he takes on Doring's stablemate Diener here. Doring is going to get involved in the match. Edwards comes out to make the save, allowing Kojima to hit the Cozy Cutter and Lariat combo for the win. Moose cuts a promo, and he's interrupted by Callis. He says he'd now to pretend to be in Moose's corner. Callis is trying to get Moose and Callihan to take each other out, but neither are buying what Callis is selling. That's the basics of that. Eric Young is cutting a promo on Edwards. They get interrupted by Decay. They talk down to Diener, but Young stops them and tells them he trained Crazy Steve as he did Diener. Steve told them that if Young was so sure about Diener, why not invoke the Freebird rules and have Violent by Design defend the tag team titles against Black Taurus and him. Match is on, and I don't know. Brown and Josh Matthews, who sits in for Striker's second week in a row, runs down next week's card. Havoc and Rosemary and Morrissey and Mac. Swan and Morrissey is announced for Against All Odds. Final match of the night. Callihan defeats Moose by DQ. Callihan hits Moose with a big boot to the start of the match, catching him off guard. Callihan gets early offense here. Moose eventually has enough, blocks Callihan. Kick attempt, power bombs him and takes control. The match spills out to the floor with back and forth action. Callihan heavily focusing on taking out Moose's arm. Back in the ring, action continues with both men trying to go after finishing moves. Moose is working only on one arm at this point, so he's having trouble with most of his power stuff. Moose hits a corner drop kick followed by a GTH for near fall. Callihan hits a pile driver for near fall, but as he went to finish this off, the Good Brothers come out and attack both men. Callihan wins by DQ. Callis and Omega walk out afterwards. Omega joins in on the attack. Backstage, D'Amore confronts them and tells Callis that since Callihan had defeated the top contender, he officially needed to be entered into the Against All Odds main event. Callis tries to argue that Tony Khan wouldn't accept Omega wrestling Callihan, so D'Amore invited Khan to be there next week to talk it over, and we close the show. I don't mind the AEW angle, but it's the only thing that's truly compelling on the show, and that's a problem. Anyway, we'll be back with more right after this.